All right. Well, thanks for everyone joining today. Hope to get you some good information on the great things that you can do with PowerShell for Power BI. This is something I use on a pretty regular basis, almost daily, and get quite a few requests on how to do other things attached to it. So I'm always, maybe not always, but fairly regularly breaking new ground and making new capabilities possible. So if you end up seeing something that's not quite available yet, let me know, and we might be able to get something working in the future. Let's see, let me give you a little background here. I'm working in Azure Data Studio. I use this as my preferred PowerShell editor. Azure Data Studio, if you're not familiar with it, it is just a simple fork of VS Code. And Benny, is the size of that too small? I can bump it up.
I think it would be useful if you can bump it up a little bit. I can read it, but I'm watching on a big screen.
Okay, here we go.
Yep.
If anyone needs it bigger, just let me know and we can do that. So Azure Data Studio is a fork of VS Code that gets merged in with what is VS Code and on a pretty regular basis. That's where I do all my PowerShell work. Used to use the ISE. The ISE is great, but it can't do the modern things that you want to. So that makes it so that this is a much better experience as far as editing when you're trying to do things with Azure, and then especially if you're doing things with PowerShell 7, or you want to work with Jupyter Notebooks and use the PowerShell kernel. That's something you're only going to be able to do in Azure Data Studio or VS Code. So that's something I made the switch to. What about full-time switch? Probably about 18 months ago. I was still a little on the fence after I joined Microsoft, and then I finally was able to, after I got a couple things solved in there, was able to take the plunge and now use it as my full-time editor for working with either SQL Server Relational or with PowerShell. So if you want to go ahead and be able to do the same things I'm doing, you can download Azure Data Studio from this link, aka MS Get Azure Data Studio. It now does actually come by default installed with SQL Server Management Studio. So if you're up to date with the latest version of that, you may already have Azure Data Studio installed. You do not technically have to have PowerShell 7 for this, but it just makes it a lot easier in a lot of respects. And if you do the notebook automation, which is kind of like the stretch extra things that we might be able to do later on in this session, if I don't run out of time, then you'll definitely need PowerShell 7 for those. PowerShell 7 is available on Windows, Mac OS, on Linux. So it's a great option for folks that aren't Windows based. And then the Power Bi Commandlets that we're going to work with today are available in the PowerShell Gallery, and you can download them by just running the install module command and telling it you want this. They're actually kind of subdivided into multiple submodules, but if you just install this one module, you'll get them all. And everything that you're seeing today is up on my GitHub repo, and you can get to that quite easily by just going to GitHub, SQL variant demos, and you can just clone the repo and pull down all the scripts. So here's where that is, and here's the repo for everything that I'm going to show today. And if we get the bonus time to show a little extra on the data validation side, then it's under the same, just a different folder under the same repo. So let me just go ahead and drop that. Oh, Benny already did it for me. Thank you, Benny. So there, you've got that link. Who am I? I'm Aaron Nelson. I'm a former 8-time Microsoft MVP for SQL Server, or Data Platform as it was called after a while. And I joined Microsoft about 21 months ago, give or take. And I live in Atlanta. And I used to run the PowerShell virtual group of PASS, but we'll be working with Ben Miller to continue on what we started there here in the near future. And I'm available on Twitter at SQL Variant, and my website, which I don't have time to update very often, unfortunately, is SQLvariant.com. I don't update it very much because I'm usually working on code to get new capabilities out to people. And I have 3 small children at home who are 5, 3, and 20 months old. So I don't have a ton of time to do much other than take care of them. So maybe in a few months later this year, when things get settled down, kids go back to school, I might be able to pick up blogging again. But until then, there's already 200 posts out there on various things that you can do with PowerShell and data. So might be some answers to your questions there already. And I also have quite a lot in terms of gist files, just things that I'm working on before they make it into, basically this whole presentation actually started out as a single gist file, and then it was 5 gist files, and then next thing you know, I had a whole presentation worth of content. So there's might be some interesting tidbits in there for you to be able to work with inside one of my gists. So might be worth checking that out. All right, back to this. Enough of that. Let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to talk about today. I'll show you pulling the Office 365 logs. That's one of the things I'll talk about. I'll talk about just interacting with reports, uploading them, downloading them, those kind of things, doing your workspace operations. We'll also pull your workspace metrics, and that is something a lot of people like to be able to report on from a data governance perspective. We'll go through that, and we can also talk about copying a Power BI workspace if you guys are interested in that. I do not have a Power BI data gateway set up in my tenant right now, but I do have some scripts that do work with that in case you're interested. You might find those interesting. I won't be able to demo anything today, but we can certainly talk about it. And again, if we have some extra time left, we'll go through some data validation possibilities that PowerShell is bringing to the table. So with that all said, we'll go ahead and dive into it. Again, I'm working in Azure Data Studio, and I've got a Jupyter notebook with a PowerShell kernel running here right now. And I am, if you're starting from zero, you can just take this one. It's called the Get Started with Power Bi Commandlets. It's probably the first one listed on the repo. And the first thing you need to do, again, is install the module. So you can just go ahead and run that. If I try to run it now, it's going to give me an error because I've already got it loaded. I'm not going to do that. But once you've got it installed, then you do need to import it into your session or rely on the auto load to do it for you. Auto load usually works, but every once in a while it doesn't. Since I'm doing a presentation, I'll be on the safe side and go ahead and explicitly tell it I want to import that module. And then if you've previously installed it, but it's been a while since you did that install and you need to catch back up, you can run the update module command and just add on this -what if parameter. And that'll just tell you what's going to happen. And basically it'll tell you, is there a new module for you to install, and tell you about it. And if there's not a new module to install, it just won't tell you anything. It'll just say nothing happens. But if there is another one, you can just use the update module command, and away you go, and you'll get your new module in about a minute, and you'll be ready to run. So one of the things I like to do is just show folks what you can do with the commands. There's a lot of them in there in this module. And to do that, I'll just go ahead and get a list here. And when you're outputting data, I think we're all probably, data people here. and probably like to see things in regular lists and grids and things like that. There it goes. That what if operation is finally coming in. Took a little longer than usual, but there it's telling me that I'm actually out of date. So maybe I need to update that. But we'll see if I can get through all these without needing an update, and save that one for later. So in a moment here, we should be able to get this command running. I'll just pop it open, another window. So we can get a list of our commands by just running git command, tell it what module we want. And in this case, I'm going to pipe it out to probably my favorite PowerShell commandlet of all time, which is called out-grid view. And that's just going to give me a nice sortable list of results that I can work with. And this only works on Windows by default, and we'll caveat that. But this gives me my list of commands. I can filter out and say, hey, well, I don't want to look at any commands that are aliases. So I can say does not contain alias. Sorry. And go ahead, and now I've got those all filtered out. So I'm not looking at any aliases. I'm just looking at the full list of commands. So I've got my list of commands right here. We can take a look. We've got all the way from looking at your Power BI capacity, looking at the entire tenant. You can look from everything down to from that end of the spectrum down to your Power BI workspaces, and obviously your reports and your data sets and everything within those reports. Your dashboards, all those kinds of things you can go ahead and take a look at. Also if you're working with the bring your own key, these are the commands you would need to use. And then also if there's a commandlet or a command that you need to do that the possibility is, the capability is out there in the REST API, it's just not available in commandlet form yet. This is kind of your way to get around it. You can compose in a Power BI REST method command and use this commandlet to pass it along to the service and have it do its operation and return you its result. So it's kind of like the only if you really have to build something yourself do you end up using this, but it's always nice to have it already there built in and properly integrated so that you don't have to think of building one yourself. All right. And also this, real quick before I go into there, this resolve Power BI error, this thing I love because it actually defaults to telling you what the last error message you received was. And I thought that was a brilliant piece of engineering. Just don't tell me all the errors. Just tell me the last one. That's what I was looking for. Yes, give me that one and do it quickly. So when I found out that was how that was the default for that one, I thought somebody knew what they were thinking when they went ahead and put that in. So great. So let's go here. I see someone putting in there resolve Power BI error last. I don't know if they ever changed that default behavior, but that was the default at one point. So, so we got everything running. We've got our list of commands. Now, to be able to actually work with any of these commands, we have to do a login to the Power BI service. This one's technically, it's an alias. It's called login-Power BI. Calls another command under the covers, and then gives me a prompt where I've got to go and tell it which one of these various accounts that I want to use. And then I have to actually remember my password and see if I get this on the right first try. And yes, skip that one for now. Just log me in. Yeah, I don't want to do anything. There we go. Okay, so I'm logged in. Now, once I'm logged in, I can just use commands like get Power BI Workspace. And then if I go ahead, and I probably should have opened this one already. If I go ahead and open up PowerBI.com and take a look. Give me a second while I pull that up. Do this sign in over here. For now. Yes. Okay. Hopefully I'll stay right there. So now if I take a look at my workspaces, I'll find things that are matching up, all company right, my first test workspace, Power PBIRS to Power BI service, monthly desktop samples, all that stuff's right there. So when this data comes out, it's actually coming out in format list is what the default is. And that's not something us data people are normally used to. We're actually used to seeing things in table form usually. So there's a command line there, format format dash table, and format table will give me that nice kind of tableized version of results. And I tend to use the auto size parameter on there, and that'll just kind of reorient those results and give them back to me. Real quick on this login Power BI, you only have to do that once per PowerShell window or once per notebook if you're using it in the notebook space. All right, so here's my list again, and it's got my names there just like I was expecting. Now I can go through and take a look at whichever one of these workspaces I want to take a look at and see the reports inside. So if I want to get all the reports in a particular workspace, I can just tell it, go get me this one particular workspace, send it over to the Power BI, get Power BI report commandlet. FT is a shortcut for that format table command. So just FT instead of typing out everything format table, then run auto size. And I tell it, all I want to see is the name. I don't care about everything else. Just give me the name. And then it'll go off, get that piece of information for me and then retrieve it. And here we go. Looks like I uploaded quite a few of them yesterday when I was trying to walk through all these scripts and make sure things were working well. So that's how you can take a look at your reports and get your list of them back. And then these are all objects. These are things that you can do pretty rich operations with. So we can take these and we can maybe download these reports. We can use this as part of our chain to go ahead and check this into source control. We can do all kinds of things with them because they're rich objects. They're not just strings of text. We are working with them through the REST API, but that REST API is able to do operations with them there. And then in certain cases, there's a couple things that it can't do, but in those cases, like cloning a workspace, at least last time I checked, we would have to download it locally and then just re-upload it, which is not a problem. Just a little bit extra time to do all that, but still pretty easy. So that is the basic lay of the land. And just one more quick one for you. If you want to take a look around and see which commands are available, you can just do a get command like I showed you earlier and get the full list, or you can use the noun parameter. So everything here is built in verb-noun format. So everything's like get or set or add or remove on the first half, and then that's our verb portion. I have no idea how you say verb in Flemish, or what your equivalent of it is, but then on the right side of it, say it again.
Werkwoord.
Okay, and then on the right side of it is always going to be the noun, or quite often you'll see it's compound nouns or multiple nouns strung together. So you'll have that format at all times, and you can use that noun to say, give me every command that has to do with a Power BI report. And that might be a little hard to see, add an asterisk on the end or star to be able to see all that. And then we can just run that and get our list of what all all our commands are for working with reports. And there they are. So that is the basic lay of the land that I have for you. I do have stuff on data governance that I plan to walk through next. I do have a section on Power BI report server. Wasn't planning on going through that today, but if there's a lot of interest, we could dive into that for a minute or two. Otherwise, we can cruise through working with the Power BI reports or copying aspects of these folders, or seeing about the pieces that you need of this from to be able to integrate it into your maybe your DevOps pipeline or other GitHub Actions pipeline, however your organization works with these reports for deploying them. And I'll leave it up to you guys to decide what we want to look through all today. I think data governance is probably the next one to look at, but if there's any more questions, we can go ahead and start taking them right away.
We did already have one question regarding to deployments to Power BI report server. So I do think that we should tackle it as well today.
Okay, you said deployments to Power BI report server?
Power BI report server, yeah. We already had a question for that in the previous session with Jens.
Okay, great. Well, we can tackle that one super easily. Hot swap connections, that's interesting. I didn't know about that until pretty interesting. I've not had to use it yet, but I think I might end up having to use it in the not too distant future. Taking a look at your question list right here, and
yeah, most of those are still they're still remainders of the previous session. I've not actually seen any questions for this specific one, except for the one that I pulled over from the last one regarding to Power BI report server.
Okay, so we'll call an audible real quick, and we'll address the Power BI report server one. Power BI report server is actually in a different module, and let's see, I put together this one. Let's see, let's go with this one real quick. Let's see if this one loads up. So you'll need to import the reporting services tools module if you want to work with Power BI report server, and you can use a command called write rs catalog item or write rs folder content, I believe it is. We can take a look real quick. And those are the commands that you would use to be able to upload a Power BI report to a Power BI report server. And I can step through that, but just let me see, where's that command window that I had floating around over here? So I'll just do that for you real quick. I'll just show you what the command would look for this. We would just say report module, and then get that list of them real quick. And again, with this, it's pretty nice. You can do multiple criterias. So in this case, we're going to say does not contain or does not equal. We'll use that one, this one, alias. Oops, if I can spell. And then we actually want it to be -rs rest, because you can only work with the Power BI reports on a Power BI server by using the ones that have rest in the name of the command. So if you want to deploy one, if you want to deploy reports, you would use, if you want to do an individual report, you would use write rs catalog item. If you want to do multiple reports, you could do write rs rest folder content. And these commands also work with the legacy paginated reports for Power BI report server or SSRS. And then you can do all the other stuff, like you might need to set your data source connection, your update parameters if you have that in your report, all those other kind of things. You can do a full deployment lifecycle, granting everything, granting access to a folder. So all the kind of things that you might need to do to be able to deploy out your Power BI reports, you should be able to do with these commands. Some new ones came out Actually, I guess they just came out last night, and I probably haven't even updated. Kind of. Let's see. Oh yeah, version 5.8. So we'll just do this real quick. Update. It's kind of bad on my own self. I just wrote 3 new commands, and they were published last night, and I haven't even updated yet. Actually, I probably should run that from administrator. But yeah, you need to do a quick update. So they now allow you to start the refresh of a report if it's running on the import model. You can now do that with a new PowerShell command that just got released last night. So that's out there. But I just want to touch on that. So we've got that out of the way. Also, if you're someone who's working with the Power BI report server and you want to actually take those reports out of Power BI report server and upload them to the Power BI service, I've got a Jupyter notebook here with a explanation of how exactly which commands you would use to be able to do that, to get them, to send them out, and then which commands you'd use on the Power BI side to go ahead and upload those. And I tested all that out yesterday, and it worked great. So if you have that desire, that is right there for you. And hopefully that works. And if there's more questions on Power BI report server, we can circle back on that one.
Yeah, there is actually one more, and I'm really curious for the answer as well. Would it be possible to address the XMLA endpoint of the embedded Power BI instances in Power BI report server directly and deploying to them, or would that wreak havoc on the report server catalog databases?
That is a terrific question, and I'm in the middle of trying to figure that one out myself. I have a very specific need for doing exactly that kind of thing, and not sure if it's going to be possible, but whoever that person is, please, I hope you're on Twitter. Ping me on Twitter and tell me you're the person asking about that, and I'll, if I find out and I'm allowed to share it, I will most certainly go ahead and share that information with you as soon as I find out. I'm suspecting I will get a response to the effect of not supported.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it's not possible.
Yeah.
This is the part where I should throw in the caveat that I do work for Microsoft. However, I am not on any of the product teams. I'm a simple field consultant for Power BI and other various Microsoft BI stack tools. And so I could help you out with your problems if you need. However, again, disclaimer, I do not work on any of the product group teams. I do not represent the product group teams. If I tell you something that can be done, it's up to the official docs as to whether it's a supported operation or not. And that's the caveat I'll go ahead and throw in there, because I know there's one part in here that if we get into the data validation, that might not entirely be supported, but does work. So there we go. All right, so with that cleared out of the way, let's go ahead and work on data governance part. Getting the workspace information. I call it the workspace assets because it's like everything that's inside there, whether it's the reports, the data sets, the data flows, all that kind of information that's inside of there. How do I find out what it is, and how do I keep track of it? Some organizations, they need to know everything about what's out there, and then they need almost like a slowly changing convention, if you will, or a bunch of facts of what's out there, and then almost, I guess, slowly changing facts in a way. Then who has access to them, right? So first we need that list of things that are out there, and we need to be able to pull it down. And I could show you how you could write this off to like a Azure SQL DB or something like that. But I think in the BI world, we're all very familiar with Excel. And I think it's a very common language. And especially when you're writing these demos where you want someone to be able to take it immediately and be able to actually do it on their machine, Excel in this case lent itself to being the one that was the easiest to show. Sorry, I'm just going to switch notebooks real quick. So to be able to do what I'm going to show you right now, you would need to install that module, Microsoft Power BI Management. You'd also need this other one, Import Excel. Import Excel, don't let the name fool you, because in just a minute, we will go ahead and walk through actually exporting to Excel with PowerShell. It's very easy. It's a simple command right here, export Excel. In the Import Excel module allows you to read and write from Excel workbooks. You can create new ones. You can read from them. You can load them into your database. I want to build a demo. Someone wanted to see how Power BI could manage, pulling in a data model from exclusively from Excel workbooks, because that was more or less where they were actually working with CSV. But long story short, I figured out how to export the entire AdventureWorks DW database to Excel files using the export Excel command, and it's actually turned out to be a lot easier than I suspected. It took a while, but it did work. And it was one of those things where it's like, I'm slightly ashamed that I did it, but it's still kind of cool that I was able to do it with, like, I forget what it was, 4 lines of code or something, five lines of code. So anyways, enough about that. Let's go back to here. So again, I'm in a new, I'm right here, I'm in a new Jupyter notebook, right? So since I'm in a new Jupyter notebook, I need to go ahead and fire up my login Power BI. Again, this is anytime you switch your Power BI, or sorry, PowerShell console, terminal, whatever have you, or if you, in this case, go to a new notebook, you need to go ahead and authenticate again. So. All right, and oh, let's see if I can try that again. Come on, get it this time. No, skip this for now. Okay, great deal. All right, so we should be all logged in here in a moment. All right, so let's say, remember we're talking about that get Power BI workspace, and I got that list of them. So if you want, in what we're about to show you, you have to be the Power BI admin to be able to do this. If you want to see all your Power BI workspaces throughout your entire organization, you throw this scope organization, and then I think that defaults to only showing you the first 100 or 400 Power BI workspaces. You add this additional -all parameter on there, and that'll give you everything. And then in this case, I want to take all that information. It's great information, but I don't want to work with it right now. I actually want to eventually import it into Power BI, but in the time being, I need to dump it somewhere. And so I'm going to dump it into a Power BI file that, in this case, we'll start with one. I did this all yesterday, and everything was working. So it might, second, oops. Actually, I think I have potentially full reset this demo. I apologize for the bump in the transition here. So it's data governance. No, I did not. Okay. So in this case, we just need to quickly make sure that this one exists. And to do that, I will insert code above. And I'll just do make dir, which I think a lot of people are familiar with. I'll just go ahead and make that directory real quick. So now that should be out there and ready for me to use. And just check that. Yep, and it's out there. So now, so here, showing you there's, for real, this this directory was just created. It's completely empty. No tricks going on here. And hopefully this is going to work. We'll go ahead and take all those Power BI workspaces, which is only 4 or 5 of, but we'll take all that information, pump it into a new worksheet in an Excel spreadsheet in there. And it's going to go ahead and fire that off right now and push it all out. in a moment or two. Once it finally gets all that information, now we've got our new Excel workbook. And if we open that up in just a few seconds, we should. There we go. So now we've got a new workbook. I'll just bump that up a little bit. It's got my workspaces here and got my list, just starting small here. But now we've got our workspaces. So we've got information on our workspaces, and it's stored in a spot. And then I'm going to be able to eventually pump it into Power BI in just a few minutes. But I need to go ahead and close out of here before I do my next operation, which is I want to check all of the data sets in my workspaces, and I want to know, I want to get a list of those so that I can then tie report that, maybe multiple reports work with the same data set. And I want that in my Excel file as well. So I'm going to just kick off this command, and again, it starts with the same thing, but then we go with the get Power BI dataset command, and it takes its information and exports it to Excel for me. So again, we'll go back over here, take a look. That file's a little bigger now. Open it back up, and now you see it's got a new tab in here. It's the data sets in the workspace. And so now we see every single data set that I have inside of there, inside these various workspaces, and I can tie them back together, my model, which I'll do in a little bit. And so let me just close that out there. So I think you get the idea at this point, hopefully. We're going through and we're taking these pieces of information. We've gone ahead and gotten our data sets. We've gotten our workspaces. Now we're going to get all our Power BI reports. Now we'll just get all that and we'll append it to that same Excel file. And when we're done with that, we're going to go through and we are going to grab all our data flows, all the information. I don't have any data flows. I'll go ahead and tell you that right now. If I had them, they would all the information would come out about them. And then on the data flows, you can also get the data source for the data flow. That's an additional layer of information that you can get. So we'll go ahead and get that. Again, I don't have any data flows in the first place, so I therefore don't have any data sources for those data flows, but you get the idea. So all of that would get emitted over to our Excel workbook, and looks like that's already done since I don't have any of those, as I mentioned. So if we take a look at this file now, we've got information on all those workspaces, all the data sets, all the reports. If I had data flows and data sources, I would have those there as well. But the idea is we've got all this tenant information. We're able to pull it into a spot where we can then move it into a data store that we probably need for data governance. Again, we could write directly to a database with this information. We're just doing it for Excel so that you have a working demo that you can take and run in your environment tomorrow. Now, with that information, you just know what's out there to an extent. You don't know what's going on with it. So there's another notebook I put together. I don't really have enough information to really pull, but there are two different ways of pulling your tenant activity logs. One is an older method using this search unified audit log command, which totally works. However, there's a newer version where you just need to use this login Power BI command and then use this get Power BI activity event command. And the date forming on it is very particular. So I've actually already taken care of that for you and figured it out. So this would be how you can get I think the most recent days worth of information. And then this bottom version of it is how you could go ahead and get the last 90 days. It only allows you to have 90 days worth of information. But I went ahead and figured out all the date formatting for you. And I went ahead and, because these activity on a large tenant can get pretty chatty, and there's a size limit here, I went ahead and carved this up so that each day ends up becoming its own file. And then you can, import those all together at once you've got them all down. But that way you don't run into any size limitations on the max limit that they do have out there. And then once you do that, then you just need to run it once a day in a scheduled job and pull it down instead of running it for all 90 days all at once. So once you have that data, then you can combine that with the tenant information that you pulled from the other notebook, and you can go ahead and marry these up in a Power BI report and have a nice little report of everything that's going on. So that is one, or the lion's share of what I have to present for you today on data governance. You can also pull in, there's a separate one for data gateway if you need to pull that in. That's in the same repo as well. So that's out there. Might need some updates. It's been a while since I worked with the data gateway, but should work, and you just might have some additional stuff that you can capture that I haven't added to the notebook yet. So at this point, before we move on to anything else, I figure it might be a good point to stop here, see if anyone's got any questions about any of this that they're seeing so far.
There is one question. Is there any news on the refresh command, as it's not yet included in the Office 365 unified audit logs?
Refresh command. Could you? I'm not an Office person. I'm literally a second generation DBA is how I started out. My dad was an Oracle DBA. Straight out of high school, I went into the technology space and became a DBA within like a year or two, and I've been doing it for over 20 years now. And about 10 or 15 years ago, I switched over to BI. All that to say, I don't do infrastructure. So tell me more about this. Yeah,
I'm not fully clear. I'm not fully clear on what he's meant.
Okay.
Particularly.
Okay.
So I'll wait for some more context.
If I can get some more context, I'm happy. I sounds like I probably wouldn't know the answer to it, but I can certainly pass it on to one of my coworkers and see if they can give me a quick answer that I can share. So, yes, DBA is hereditary. So, at least in my family. All right.
But yeah, let's move on. I'll let you know if there comes some more context on this.
All right, and sorry about the screaming in the background. As
it's part of home office life. We all know it by now.
Yeah, exactly. We just gotta get through summer, and then maybe enough people have the vaccine, and maybe they can go to school next year. So we'll see. Yes. All right. So next, so we went through a little bit of Power BI for Report Server already. Just real quick on that one, not planning to go back into that one, but if you have legacy or these still work, if you have paginated reports that for SSRS or for Power BI Report Server, and you actually need to kind of deploy them in a more DevOps style, I actually did create 2 new commands last summer, to be able to, if you're familiar with opening up Visual Studio and then you right click and you deploy, but you can install Visual Studio on your deployment server. You need a way to be able to do that. I figured out how to do that, and I wrapped it up into 2 commands. One which gets the deployment config out of your Visual Studio project file, and then one that publishes the report to the locations and takes care of all the data sources and all the kind of stuff that are within your project file. So if you have the need to do that, I figured out how to do that, and that's something you can put in your DevOps pipeline and not have to think about anymore, and you could have it deployed every night if you desire. And so that's out there. But, here we go. So what would folks like to see more of? Would you like to see uploading reports, downloading reports, working with the workspaces, like cloning the workspaces, or you guys tell me. I always get inspirations from the audience for new things to add to my sessions. So if you guys want to see something, happy to dive through it. And now's your chance to get a little bit of a customized session for y'all.
I'd actually like to dive into find abandoned Power BI workspaces, please.
I was, I haven't touched this in a long time, but let's see if it works. So here, let me go ahead and bump this code size up just one more, just to make sure everyone can see it. If I recall correctly, you just do a simple, you have to be a Power BI admin. You come in here and you say, get Power BI workspace, scope organization. You do, like if there's a lot of them, you need to say all, and you just add this dash deleted switch parameter on there. And then it's going to tell you all the deleted workspaces. And then again, I just export this out to an Excel workbook, and then it tells you about them. I think the default is they're out there for 30 days. For example, when the abandoned workspaces come into, predominantly when someone leaves the company and they had a My Workspace, or they had some other workspace and they were the owner of it. And, you might have these out there, and after 30 days, that workspace, if they're the owner on it, depending on what your rules are, that might disappear. So this might be something that you want to monitor, once a week, and find out what's out there and make sure that you've downloaded all the reports and stored them, maybe not in source control, but maybe just in a blob store. And that you've got a copy of it, just in case when the auto delete process goes through, you have someone call up and say they need it back. You'd be able to pull that back. I did the kind of the same pattern of work there, where I go and I get the data sets in there, get the reports and those kinds of things. So there's also, let's see, there's this other one down here. Again, it's been a while since I needed to do this, but I was able to find out that there's a specific phrase that you want to look for where the name gets converted to from whatever the person's name was before they left the company to personal workspace of anonymized user. And that's your keyword that you need to be able to look for to pick up some of those workspaces. So to filter them out from all the other ones. So that's what I remember of it off the top of my head. So if you have more questions, you might be able to stump me right here. But other than that, there you go. Give it a whirl in your environment, and if I can improve it, let me know. You can do a pull request or just drop a comment or something like that, and make it easier for everyone else to work with. All right, so we've got 12 minutes left in this session. If there are no other requests, we could kind of touch on something small that I don't know if people are interested in it. I know some people are. I don't know how many people in your group, but it's working with just taking your Power BI report and being able to, you go through and you make changes to it, and a lot of times they aren't supposed to change anything. You're just making a small change, and you go to your sales report or something like that, and the sales number should still be the exact same because whatever change you were making didn't affect that. But then sometimes you go back in and you find out, wait, your numbers are changed, and you don't know exactly when they changed, and now you got to go back step and find out when that happened. And it would be real nice if whenever you do make these changes, you could just be able to open up a script and run it, and run through a bunch of queries and compare them and make sure all your numbers match. That's something I've been working on recently. Internally, we've got some requests to be able to do that, and I figured out one way to be able to accomplish that fairly easily. Let's get some manual steps in there, but if folks are interested in it, I can walk through that one real quick. Or I can just show you guys how to query Dax from PowerShell if you're interested in that, either one.
Well, since no one is responding, then let's go to Dax and PowerShell, please, because I am very intrigued by that.
Dax and PowerShell is fairly easy. The script that I have working right now only works in PowerShell 5. Give me a couple days and we can probably get that working in PowerShell 7 as well. But if you take the script exactly like it is right now, it would not work. But I don't think it's going to be a big problem to fix that. So I've got a little script out here. It's called invoke-dax query. That's VS1. The very first time you run it, you would actually need to go ahead and uncomment out this part. I built it as a function. I think it's actually more appropriate that it's, I don't think you need it as a function, but you need these middle lines here, and you need to do that one time, and that just pulls down a NuGet package for you that will install this ADOMD.net NuGet package, and this is what you can use to query a SSAS database or a Power BI report, as it turns out. When you pull down, this thing gets updated pretty regularly. You'll want to make note of what the location is that gets installed to, and I've gone ahead and hard-coded that into my script so I don't make any mistakes. But once you've got this installed, you can then, first up, you've got this function that loads that DLL into your PowerShell session. And then the second one, that'll go ahead and run this little function that I stole from Alex Powers. And that one will allow you to run a DAX query and pass it on to again, an SSAS tabular database or a Power BI report, either one. And that's all it takes. Again, the working version of it only works in version 5 of PowerShell. So we will go ahead and run that right now, bring that into my session. And then the way that you work with this is fairly straightforward. There's another way to do what I'm about to show you, but the easiest way, or to me, the easiest way, is I've got my Power BI report and I want to validate some numbers and maybe run a query against it. The easiest way to be able to find that is to just open DAX Studio and go ahead and open up a fresh session of that right now. And when we open up DAX Studio, I'm sure everyone here is probably familiar with DAX Studio. You can go ahead and connect to a report. Let's see if I can bring that over onto this. It's not letting me. Let me try it one more time. Now it doesn't want to let me move. So I actually intended to show you guys that first step, which is just connecting to the data model. Apologies, I wasn't able to show that on this screen. Just wouldn't let me. Actually, let me try it one more time. I think I can do that if I do a shift and tab over. Let me try it one last time. Because if you've not seen it before, then it's probably seems like voodoo seeing it happen on a different screen than just be showing up. There we go. So that little connect prompt will allow you to connect to any Power BI report that's open on your machine. I've got 2 of them open right now. And in this case, I want to connect up to my report catalog, say connect, and then my DAX Studio session, it's actually this one now, is connected up. And that gives me 2 pieces of information I need to know. The port number that little instance is listening on. And then I also need to know the database that I'm going to be working with. And then once I've got those 2 pieces of information, I can start querying away. So let me just do a quick new, let me see if I can do a new edit files. This one. Let's see if this works. All right, good deal. So that's part of the information I'm going to need. I've already got my invoke DAX query in here, and it's got this server address, and I'm going to need to be able to pass that information there. And then I also need to be able to tell it the database that I'm working with, which in this case is going to be a GUID because that's what they decided to do. So I copy that ID, and I guess I should probably change it instead of being named to be database ID. And then I put in my query. So in this case, I'm just going to say a very simple query of evaluate, and then I'm going to say the port catalog. So that's just telling me, give me basically almost like a dump of that table. Just tell me the whole table in this case, because it's a table inside of there. So if I run that, there we go. I start getting results. And again, it's another time where Power BI is going to, or sorry, PowerShell is going to go ahead and default to outputting its results in format list. So each one of these kind of like blocks that you're seeing scroll by there is a single row. And again, I can very easily work with this in table form by just adding a pipe and saying format table and giving it that auto size parameter. And then as soon as this gets complete, I can go ahead and run it again with the other format function, and then have that tell me what all these rows are. And basically, it's just going to give me, and this is a super simple example, but in this case, it's really just going to give me an identical version of this report, this grid of information that you're seeing on the screen. But the point here is just that it's possible to run whatever query you want. I'm just telling it to give me a listing of that table in this case, but I have other cases where I'm telling it, give me a sum, call this measure, run that measure and give me the total for it, or some other thing that some other operation that I want done. And so I have that. Sorry, scrolled too far. So I'm able to access that data from the Power BI report, or this runs again against SSA as tabular, and I can pull that into a PowerShell session. Then I can do whatever I need to from there. So that is the start of it. And I've taken a little bit further. We're integrating it actually with pester tests to be able to do my data validation. Probably take another 10 or 15 minutes to go through that. I realize it's probably getting late over there, so I don't want to hold you guys on too long, but that's kind of where I'm working my way towards. Probably have a new session out later this springtime on doing this data validation inside of PowerShell, but it's coming along nicely, and hope to have a lot more cool things to share in the not too distant future.
Yeah, that's really interesting things, Aaron. Is there any chance we can quickly dive into the backtrack code option as well? Because we did have a few people asking for that as well.
I'm sorry, the
tracking changes inside of the report.
Tracking changes. So as far as to be able to do the comparison, the full comparison of it, and that way. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll give you a quick overview of it. So I put together a Dax, a pester test that does a very simple, invokes that kind of query, and I know that maybe I should have 26 rows, and I want to do a quick check and make sure that I've got 26 rows. And so my session is bogging down on me real quick. Let me close a couple things down that I don't need. Don't want to run my machine out of memory. I was doing a version of this presentation internally just a few weeks back, and actually blue screened my machine because I ate too much RAM. And I blue screened it 2 hours before the session, and I did it multiple times. So with that, seeing that my machine is already slowing down a bit, let me go ahead and close down a few things so that I get out of the danger zone there. So I feel like I'm already stepping into it. All right, so close that next one. All right, we should one last one that should be it. Hopefully that'll free up a little bit of RAM. All right, so hopefully we get my machine to come back to life here a little bit. Let me just go ahead and close that one too. And don't save. There we go. All right, so again, to be able to do this, what I am using is a framework called Pester. It's actually comes default with PowerShell. The latest version is version 5. I've only for sure made this work with version 4.10. So I'm just gonna make sure I load the version 4 version of Pester that's on my machine. And then I'll be able to run one of these tests. So in short, again, I'm just gonna go ahead and do that same kind of thing that I was doing a minute ago. Actually, I'll need to copy over my, let's see, that one. I need to copy over my localhost number. Oh, look. That's the right one. Is it the one I did earlier? Just double checking there. I hope that's right. Oh yeah, I've left this up all day. Of course it's right. Sorry, forgot that. For this specific reason, I've left it up all day, so I didn't have to do this part. I forgot that. All right, so we'll go back here. Sorry about that. All right, so I've got these placed in here. I'll go ahead and set these variables real quick. Just make sure that the session currently has them loaded up. And then I should be able to get this, get these results. I don't want to stream them out to the screen because that took a while. But I want to check the count on them to see if that actually did work the way I thought it did. All right, looks like it came back with 1, which means that it didn't really work. So let me just double check what I've got here. So I've got my things here, report catalog, check, and let me just rerun that. I don't think it's actually running the query. No. All right, it is actually running the query. So let's try this one more time. All right, so rerun that. Results should hopefully have more than 1 this time. Let's see if it works. There we go. I don't know. Second time's a charm. I don't know what I did different. Clicked in slightly to the right. So now we've got 26 results and 26 rows. It should be 26. So I'll go ahead and run this single line of code. My result count, which we just saw a moment ago, should be, it is 26 and it should be 26. So it told me nothing because it matched, right? And that's what we want to see. But if it should be 27, let's say that that's what was supposed to be there, and I run that line of code again, then I get this little error. Expected 27, but got 26, all right? Now, of course, comparing against a static value is not normally what you're going to be doing. Maybe if you're just doing like, should always have the last 3 years worth of data, so therefore there should be 36 months. Maybe you're going to be checking to see if there's 36, but that's is probably not what you're normally going to do. You're probably going to want to check against an actual live database or something. You can also check these things against, in this case, I'm checking the this by saying 0 here. I'm saying, give me the first result. And I know, because I've done this a lot, I know that what the result of that first row should be. It should be data sources. And as we can see from having checked it just now, it is data sources. So if I run this, I go ahead and I get nothing back because it matched. And that's what I want to see. So when I do this kind of stuff, let's see, that's building the individual pieces of it. Let me go back up here. Oops, sorry. Need to go to my repo real quick. So GitHub, demos, presentations, Pester for Power BI. Once we have one of these tests put together the way that we expect it to be, we don't have to run these, line by line or anything. We can go ahead and do the whole check all at once, and to do that, we just use the invoke dash pester command. And with, in this case, the name of this file is called invoke dax query.test.ps1. And I would go ahead and run that. And so there, it just ran that first test and it succeeded, ran the second test, it succeeded, and we get a little summary. 2 tests passed, 0 failed. Again, if I switch this to, say, 27, save my file real quick, and rerun that exact same test, the first one will fail, There we get that failure message, and then the second one passed. So we got one passed, one failed. So that is, the basics, the very, very basics of being able to check what you're looking at. But of course, that's just the start of it, right? You actually need to run against usually a SQL query. So what I've done is gone ahead and, taken it to where you're probably going to go with it if you were going to go down this road. Oops. And I've gone ahead and put together my SQL query here. And I've gone ahead and matched this up with what would be, comparing T-SQL results versus DAX results. And then I go ahead and do that same step here where I get the report catalog from the DAX query, check that its count is where it should be. Obviously, again, you're probably not going to have that one there. You actually want, in the real world, you want something more like this second one, which is going to run a SQL query against whatever your host database is, and you're going to store those results into your SQL results, and then you're going to compare those two numbers in real time and see if they match, and make sure that they come back to the exact same number. They should agree, and then you run the test, and it'll tell you whether they match or not. You can check individual rows, make sure that they match, and so on and so forth. And that's the start of it. That's the very quick tacked on nickel tour of how this would work. So, any questions on that one?
Well, none yet, but I'll have to dig into this a bit.
It's like a whole, like, where did you go with this thing? Like, it's like you got to kind of warn people before you do this thing that you're going to go off into this part. But we run this right now. I'll show you one more test that I have. If I have it here, this sales table example test. Basically, I've taken the monthly Power BI sample report that they send out there, and I've been putting together the ability to do exactly that, where we pull in these queries and we run them. We actually store the queries in files so that they're not inside the test. And the reason we do that is because you would want to be able to open the query and run it in Management Studio, or in the SQL window in Azure Data Studio, or open it up in DAX Studio and run it there and verify your numbers are matching. So we actually pull them from files and then run the queries, and then take the results, marry them back up, match them back up, make sure that they say what they're supposed to say, and then, make sure our numbers match, and then go on from there.
Yeah, that is some really cool stuff. Thank you.
Yep. And again, same kind of thing. Just last thing is, when you get your list of tests, you do that invoke pester, and when you have like an entire directory full of tests that you want to run through, you just don't even tell it any names that you want to use. You just say invoke pester, and then it knows to look through that everything with a .tests.ps1 or .test.ps1 in your directory, and it runs all of them all at once. And you can even put an output report that is, it's got file format of, sorry, not output file, but output format that you can do JUnit XML or NUnit XML, which I know nothing about, but testing people do. So they might be excited by that. So it's, yeah, that's it. That's everything I've got for you guys today. And hopefully that helps get you all started in doing something useful with PowerShell, making your lives easier with the PowerShell commandlets that are already available out there today. And again, everything that you saw today is already uploaded to my GitHub repo. And you can go ahead and download, clone the repo, get all the code, and play around with it to your heart's desire.
Yep. Yeah, tomorrow I'll send out an email to people that registered through the website. So those that I do have an email address for, and they'll get the link to the recording and the links to the commandlets as well.
Excellent.
But thank you, Aaron. That was some really cool stuff. All the commandlets, and especially the fact that you pieced it together in a fancy Jupyter notebook.
Yep. And if we had more time, I'd show you. We can actually automate these Jupyter notebooks now that we can pass parameters into them. And there's another one out there from Doug Fink, the same guy that did the import Excel module, that now allows us to actually execute these notebooks. So you can take everything that you put together in a notebook, and you can just run it against your tenant, get all the results back in a result notebook, and do whatever you need with, and maybe take that notebook and pass it on to someone else so that they can work with it. So it's very exciting.
I've got some thoughts in my head for automating stuff, getting artifacts out of there. There's things brewing in my head as well. Yeah. With that said, thank you for your wonderful presentation. If there's any questions, do ask him now, or contact Aaron through Twitter afterwards. Thank you for attending, and I do hope to see each and every one of you again sometime soon, wherever.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me. Really glad to get this information out to more people.